We are still waiting for Commissioner Simkowitz and Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt, but we do have a quorum. So while we are waiting for them to come, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda as amended with the following amendments. We are going to delete the letter to the Department of Buildings on the technical safe use for treatment facilities. And we are going to add 2207 Foxhall vacant and blighted building, letter to Attorney General Charles Schwab. And that is going to go as
Brian
the last
Schwab,
item.
not Charles. Brian, not Charles.
Yes.
Oh, did I say
The
Charles?
Attorney General, not the stockbroker.
I actually know Brian, so that's embarrassing. Letter to Brian Schwab, and that will go at the end of official actions. And then we are also deleting from commission business the DOEE testimony, because I have not had a chance to look to see what is actually in the budget. Is there a second for that motion? Commissioner Simkowitz seconds the motion. Are there any comments? All right, all those in favor? None in opposition. The agenda is affirmed. So we are going to be moving straight into Officer Tony McElwee. Greetings. And if we could get him pinned, Catherine, that would be great.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, good evening, commissioners and all our residents and guests in attendance. Thank you, as always, for inviting MPD to your meetings. I'm Officer Tony McElwee, and it's always a pleasure to be here to join in. I first would like to start off with a bit of good news. Our crime here in PSA 205, which represents your community, is down by 54% from this time last year. I want to repeat that. You are down by 54%. Of course, we're always striving for Vision Zero, but for now, we're extremely happy in this reduction. You can rest assured that we will proactively continue to reach out our goal, which is stamping out crime within your communities. Before I get into our monthly stats, I want to let everyone know that you can actually go online and pull up the stats for yourself. Please just, it's quite easy. Just search Crime Cards DC. That's Crime Cards DC, and you can click on the stats. You can actually view per PSA, wards, or you can go citywide. Please check it out for yourselves. All right, let me break down some crime stats for you. And these crime stats are from the 1st of January to March 31st of this year versus the same time last year. Sex abuse, we had 1 last year versus 0 this year. Robbery was unchanged. We had 1 last year and 1 this year. Burglaries, we had 3 last year and 1 this year. Theft from autos, we had 25 last year versus 8 for this year. General thefts went from 16 last year to 9 this year, and we had 5 stolen autos last year versus 4 this year. Arsons remained the same at 0. The last 31 days, we even saw a larger reduction in crime. Last month, March 1st to the 31st, we had only 5 offenses occur within PSA 205. To put this in perspective with offenses from other past months, I broke it down like this. The same time last year, we had 11 offenses. I went back to October 1st to October 31st of 2023, and we had 23 offenses. As I discussed at all our past meetings, theft from automobiles remains your biggest issue within your community. Let me break down our 5 offenses over the past 31 days, or for the month of March. We had 1 stolen auto. We had 3 theft from autos, 1 general theft. The stolen auto occurred on March 23rd between 10 and 11 a.m. from the 4400 block of Salem Lane. Stolen was a 2019 Audi Q5. Two of the theft from autos occurred at the same location on different days, and this occurred inside a garage, a private parking garage located at 4000 Massachusetts Avenue. Both vehicles were left unlocked. The third theft from auto occurred on the 4400 block of MacArthur Boulevard, which involved a motorbike or motorcycle that was parked unattended. Someone broke into the saddlebag and removed a pair of glasses and some gloves. The one theft that we had was a shoplifter that occurred at the CVS located at 4859 MacArthur Boulevard. This involved a lone actor who was described as a black male, approximately 40 years old, who walked out with some household products without paying for them. And before I take any questions, let me move into our traffic report. And I'm going to go over something different this time around. I'm going to go over our traffic ticket and arrest stats for the last 31 days. And please keep this one in mind. This is for the entire 9 PSAs within the 2nd District. For the month of March, we wrote a total of 684 moving violations within the 2nd District. 175 of them were in PSA 205. And they ranged from seatbelt violations to speeding, distracted driving, failure to yield to pedestrians and crosswalks. And there were 50 traffic red light violations included in that. The locations that I focused in on was in PSA 205 was MacArthur Boulevard, as always. It's a main thoroughfare. Foxhall Road, Reservoir and Foxhall, Canal Road during the evening hours, Arizona and MacArthur. And also this time we gave special attention to the 4900 block of Lawboro. And finally, I never put these out here, but I will this time around to give you some ideas. These are traffic arrests that occurred in the 2nd District, just to let you know what's going on out there. In the month of March, we arrested 42 drivers for driving without driver's licenses, known as a no permit. We arrested 8 drivers for driving with counterfeit tags on their vehicles. We also arrested 33 individual drivers for driving while under the influence, known as DUI. And for a total of 104 arrests altogether. And there was 9 reckless driving, and there was also 10 persons that were arrested for having open containers of alcohol in the vehicle when they were stopped during the traffic stops. With that said, I'm happy to take any questions, concerns, complaints.
Commissioner Simkowitz?
Talk to me about the fake driver's tags. Were they expired tags to the correct vehicle, or was it actually, somebody that created their own fake tag and put it on the car?
Most of them were computer-made fake tags, and most of them displayed valid. I can't go into all the particulars because I don't know them all, but yes, to answer your question, the majority of them were the ones that you can make online.
Thank you for making that a priority. That's been one of my priorities, because if these people are doing that, they're trying to avoid our laws, and they're all of our laws, including the insurance laws. So if these people hit you, you may be stuck with a big insurance bill and have to pay for your own doctors. So thank you.
And I think a lot of that credit, we have our crime suppression team, CST, here at the 2nd District. They focused on those particular crimes, and the majority of the rest on those counterfeit tags is from that unit alone.
Does anyone else have a question?
I am going to put my email address in the chat room, okay, Commissioner Duncan?
Great. And I also put the crimecardsdc.gov website link in the chat also.
Oh, outstanding. I appreciate that. Thank you for having us. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Up next, sorry, thank you, Matthew Barclay, our mayor's office community relations representative, also known as our MOKR. Take it away, Matthew. Hi, Mr.
Hello,
Barclay.
everyone. My name is Matthew Barclay. I'm the Ward 3 liaison for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. My information is in the chat. Please reach out if you're in need of any help or anything engaging with DC government. We have some announcements today. Today, Mayor Bowser released the DC budget. The FY25 budget and financial plan is made up of $21 billion in operating funds and $11.8 billion in capital improvement funds. The post-COVID economic factors include slower revenue growth, the end of federal stimulus funding, significantly higher operating costs, including an additional $200 million in WMATA funding, and the impacts of the remote work environment. As we go throughout the next 2 months, the directors of the agencies and the mayor herself will be out and explaining the budget. And I'm expecting we will be asking you, Tricia, and commissions to have one of our directors present to you next month. So,
very quickly on that, does that mean as a commission we could say, oh, we would really like DCPS, or we would really like DDOT, or do we make those requests to you?
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to guarantee it, but yes. Okay, moving along. The mayor made a statement. There's a lot to be excited about in Washington, D.C. right now. Our comeback is working and the state of the district is strong. D.C. is the #1 city in the country for tech careers and among the top cities for women-owned business openings. We are leading the country in per capita restaurant openings and office to housing conversions. Tourism is rebounding. Our public school enrollment is up 2 years in a row. Crime is trending down. Unlike many of our peer cities, DC's population is growing. So there's a lot of positive things happening in the district, and I just wanted to highlight that. Also, there are summer jobs available for DPR, seasonal jobs. So if you know any people interested in that, you can go to dpr.dc.gov/summerjobs. Also, the district's housing in downtown program is now accepting applications. This is through DEMPED. The Housing in Downtown program offers a 20-year residential property tax abatement for building owners who develop office to residential conversions with affordable housing. So if you know anybody, let them know. Also, this week, Mayor Bowser rolled out a $500,000 retail grant program to rescue DC businesses. Applications are open for the 2024 Robust Retail Grant Program managed by the Department of Small and Local Business Development. The Robust Retail Grant Program supports retail businesses based in DC by offering $10,000 in small business grant funding. This year, 48 businesses will be awarded funding through a lottery selection process. So look forward to that. And if you know anybody, let them know. Oh, and if you want any more information about any of those things, please email me and I'll be happy to get back to you with all of the information. So thank you.
I have a question on the grants. Do
Sure.
they have to be open, or can they be, like building out their restaurant?
I'm gonna say that I don't know, and then I can get back to you.
Okay. I imagine they need to be open, but I don't know. Thank you. Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt, is that you raising your hand?
Yeah, I have a question about the budget. I really appreciate the mayor allocating funding for WMATA to make sure that we don't lose any bus routes or rail service. But what was behind the decision to cut the circulator funding entirely? It seems a little strange to me.
So I think that so 200 million for WMATA, right?
But then 32 million for the circulator gone, and that's it. There's no more circulator.
Understand. So it's like a balance of like, okay, we're increasing our commitments to WMATA, and like the circulator isn't it's the same service as WMATA would provide, busing and
the circulator fills in gaps that WMATA doesn't cover currently. That's sort of why it's running. So you're eliminating these routes.
Yeah, I understand. I can get back to you more on like a very specific answer to your question.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Can I just do a quick follow-up on that? And Commissioner Cullen, maybe you know this. Was the circulator still free? I know it had been fare free for a while. Was it still free? And if yes, then Matthew, the follow-up question would be, was there any contemplation to just putting it, putting fares back in place so that the circulator could remain running?
That's also a great question. I don't know. I believe the budget also did not touch anything regarding the free busing on the late night busing that was implemented, I believe, this year. So great question. I'll get back to you.
The circulator is not free currently, though the fare is lower. I think it's like $1, whereas
Right.
most buses would be maybe $2. So
Okay,
it is,
all right, thank you.
pretty
Yeah,
consistent,
but
yeah.
so maybe that's something that might be. Is it done? Is the circulator finished, or is there?
No, I mean,
some
this is just the initial proposal for the budget, so I imagine the
Yeah.
council will
Okay.
hash it
All right.
out.
So maybe, I mean, that might be the proposal that we proffer, which is to make the circulator the same fee as WMATA buses, and would that be enough to keep it online?
It's an interesting idea.
Seeing no other questions, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining as always.
I have 2 follow-ups.
Okay, okay,
I'll email you all this week.
okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilmember Freeman's liaison, Taylor Cogan. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, how are you guys?
Great.
Good. Thanks for having me here. Thank you guys for being here too. I don't have a ton of updates since last month. As you know, it's been really busy. We've been anticipating that preliminary budget. So as you know, we got that today. So now we are entering the season of budget oversight hearings, which will continue through May 2nd. So I do encourage each of you to go through that schedule, kind of same rigmarole of, showing up and sharing what really matters most to you. I will say we started going through it when we received it, which obviously wasn't a ton of time before we got into today's hearing, but there are a number of things that were certainly a priority for the council member that we're not seeing in there, and things that, that he hopes to work with his colleagues to help make more robust. So as you see things that matter to you most, feel free to reach out to our office, sign up to submit testimony, that kind of thing. Our next workday in the ward will be April 25th on a Thursday. We are still nailing down that location. I think we'll have it by tomorrow, but it will be in our newsletter and on social media. Other than that, that's pretty much where we are right now. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes.
I have a question for you in terms of testifying before the budget oversight hearings. So some of us had signed up under the previous schedule and then the budget was delayed. Do we need to re-sign up? And
sorry, go ahead.
And do you have the link for where the calendar is?
Yep, I do have that link. I'll put it in the chat. My suspicion is you would have to sign up, but I can't answer that with confidence. So I'll find out first thing tomorrow morning and email you, Tricia. But yeah, just with all things that I know so far is that you sign up again just to be safe. But I'll put that link in the chat. It's kind of a cumbersome website, but similar to the oversight hearings where you get to the page, then scroll down. And I'll also include the link to sign up to submit testimony. But if you have any trouble with any of that, send it to our office. If you, just want to share your priorities, send them to our office because we're listening.
Commissioner Elkins?
I had a follow-up question. I think you might have to consult with your colleagues, but I noticed on the DDOT hearings that the witnesses from the government go first and then the witnesses for the public go second, which seems a little out of what the tradition has been in the past. The public testifies first and then the director of DDOT. So I wonder whether that is in fact correct on the hearing calendar. That's what the calendar is showing. It's important for us to know whether we're supposed to show up on the 11th of April or whether we're supposed to show up on, I think it's the 30th of April.
Of course.
Different. So if you could be back to us on that, that would be very helpful.
I will. Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out. I'll find out.
Being no other hand raised, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. I do not believe that DDOT's here, Christian Pinheiro. He generally comes when we ask him to. So moving on to our local institutions, we are going to start with Laura Marks with American University. Hello, Laura.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. My thanks to all the council staff who stayed up last night reading the budget. It's been a long week for them. I think there's 400 some witnesses signed up for the DCPS hearing tomorrow. So good luck to everybody who's turning out for that. So at AU, we have our annual beautification day coming up next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. We have beautification going on around campus, getting everything cleaned up and ready for spring. And we welcome everyone from the community who'd like to come and join us. There's registration on the AU quad, both days 8 to 11. Volunteers get t-shirts and lunches, and we would love to have neighbors come join us in getting the campus ready for spring. I will drop a link to that in the chat and my email address, and happy to take any other questions anyone might have.
Thank you very much for joining us. Seeing no hands, we are going to say thank you, and we'll see you next month. Is Corey Peterson here with Georgetown? I do not see him here, so we are going to move on. Normally we hear from George Washington University, but the president of GW is with us tonight, and they will be under our discussions. I'm sorry, my dog is.
Commissioner Duncan, you're still muted.
Commissioner updates. Yes, sorry. Moving on to commissioner updates. We'll go in reverse order this time. Commissioner Simkowitz, do you have any updates for us?
I don't have anything. Sorry. Thanks.
All right, great. Commissioner Nowak?
I do not.
Commissioner Horn?
I just wanted to report that I've been trying for the last 4 months or so to get the cars that are apparently workers parked near the Fitzgerald to move because they're in our Ward 3 spaces. And there's been no real success. The parking enforcement people simply don't respond, even when you talk to them personally. And the only real success was there was a whole series of trucks that were parked in front of Addie Basson all the way to Black Coffee, and finally those trucks were cleared away. But we have a real problem there, and there doesn't seem to be a solution.
Does anyone know if the parking enforcement people are run by DDOT or MPD?
They're actually DPW.
Yes, and I've had some success in dealing directly with the person in DPW who is in charge of parking enforcement, and I don't remember his name at this point, Commissioner, but I'll be glad to provide it to you. And I would suggest a personal email from you to him, alerting him to this problem, because he has been responsive in the past.
That would be great. Matt Fruman's office has also tried at least 4 or 5 times.
Well, I'm not sure if that doesn't work. I'm not sure what happens, but it's not. But why not try? I will send you the person's email address, and you can see what you can do with him.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis, do you have any updates?
Nothing from me this month.
that leaves it to me. I do have a couple of updates. So one, people may remember the PUD over at American University Park that is across from Massachusetts Avenue, the Lady Bird Johnson site, also known as the Valor Project. It was approved by the Zoning Commission in 2020. And I think the 2019 ANC actually voted to approve that as the adjacent. We just got notice, actually Commissioner Elkins pointed this out, Urban Turf posted today that their appeals from the neighbor group there have been exhausted, and they are moving full steam ahead with a project that is going to have 219 units with first floor retail. At one time they had a lease with a market, but I think that lease is no more because it was tied up in court for so long. But I think that was the idea for them to get a market there. The other update.
Sorry, can you remind, is this the Super Fresh site?
Yes, the
Okay,
Super Fresh
thanks.
site. People call it the Valor Project because Valor is a big developer. They're one of the co-developers there, but it's going to be fairly large. It's 219 units. They'll have their 8%, IZ. And I think that we can see them. They probably are in for their permits now, if I had to guess. The other update I wanted to get was on the MacArthur High School renovation. As a community member, I'm a member of the school improvement team, and we got an update this week. And they're making improvements to the building to make it a high school over 3 years. There's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. They're working all summer, starting now, building new classrooms to open up for a new batch of 200 students coming next year. The big issue there is that there is not a large cafeteria that can hold the students, and there's no auditorium or a space that once they reach an 800 student capacity, that is going to be a place where everyone in the school can gather. And the budget came out this morning, and it does not look like there is money in the budget for an auditorium. When the community working group had decided to make this a high school, they had told us that they were going to build an auditorium there. So there is a battle looming. I have a feeling it's one of the reasons why there are so many people signed up to testify on the DCPS budget. The mayor is just saying there's not enough money. This comes out of capital budget, but just wanted to let everyone know that the funding is not looking good there. And those are all the updates I had.
Can I ask a question? What are they proposing to, how are they going to feed the kids?
So I think that they're planning on doing the kids in like a rotated basis. So for example,
Okay, so like 3
I
lunches.
remember when I was in high school, they had to have 3 lunch periods. Some of us ate at like 10:33 in the morning, and then some people ate at 1:30. It wasn't great.
Okay.
That's what Jackson Reed has right now, and it's not. It's not amazing if you're like friend, because if your friend gets put in the wrong lunch period, like you're never seeing them all year.
Yeah. And now I'm realizing that I am not 3D03, I'm 3D02, and I
That's
skipped
true.
over one. I'm sorry, Commissioner Cologne. Oh, Marilyn. did you
Yeah.
have
Oh,
something first?
yeah. Marilyn.
Just because it's on the topic of this, MacArthur High School, as many of you know, Mayor Bowser was with FCCA last month. Commissioner Simkowitz and I were there, and there were many parents of MacArthur students who came out on this topic. And so she is hearing it, not just from the community working group, but really there were students who spoke as well as their parents. So it's really a tragic situation to, kind of ask kids and families to take a risk on a new school and all of the things that come with being a pioneer. Infrastructure isn't in place in terms of curriculum, and teachers are all new and students are all new, but then to have the space not befitting the student body, it's really disappointing. And so it deserves any attention that we can give it, and anything that we can do as a commissioner as time goes on, I would be supportive of doing so. Thank
I
you.
agree with everything you've said.
Okay, yeah, and in more positive school news, the DME for Education walked back their proposal on the Man-Janney boundary change. I know the letter we passed was not what I had in mind at all, but we got it passed, and I'm not sure if it made any impact, but I'm really happy they listened to, Janney parents and Man parents and everyone who was serving on that advisory board. I know it was a lot of work for them, and I'm really glad that they walked back that proposal. They said they're gonna, monitor it as enrollment grows. Maybe with that new development, they might have to do this again. I mean, that's a lot of new families coming to our to Janney, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm very happy about that. And a smaller thing, apparently the Maryland Department of Transportation is doing some road work on Westmoreland Circle. Apparently they have jurisdiction over that, and so they're doing resurfacing. So one lane's going to be closed for the next week. It shouldn't be that bad, but we'll see.
I think that work, the sign says it's going to be done at night. Did you hear that the lane is going to be
I
closed?
heard that they were closing one lane during the day too. I got an email about it. It would be awesome if it was only done at night, but it seemed to me like they were working from 9 to 5.
And is it all the way around the circle? Because the DC marker actually sits there in the circle. You can see it when you come down.
I'm not totally sure how it works. I got the notice from DDOT saying that the Maryland Department of Transportation was doing this work. And what they said was they'll close one lane and resurface it, and then they'll close another lane once the first lane is done and resurface it. So none of the circle will be closed to anyone at any point, but traffic might be slower.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Elkins.
Just on that point, I think there's some work going on in Nebraska Avenue in front of American University. I'm not familiar with how complicating it is, but just to let everybody know that there may be some traffic impacts there. More importantly, the Transportation Committee will meet again this month on the 23rd at 1 p.m. And as usual, we invite all neighbors to join us. It's a very active committee and has produced a lot of good work, and I expect it to continue to do so. The last thing I would mention is I was in a meeting of the Community Liaison Committee of the Metropolitan Police PSA 205, and there was a very interesting presentation by an enforcement officer from the Alcohol, Beverage, and Cannabis Administration about the fact that they are now beginning enforcement against the gifting shops that are unlicensed, in order to try to move them either out of business or into a licensed situation. And they decided to focus on Georgetown, and they identified about 17 or 18 of these gifting shops in Georgetown and visited about 8 of them. Among the tools they have to try to bring these facilities into compliance are, first of all, that most of these facilities, if not all of them, use out of DC suppliers for their cannabis, which is illegal, and so they can be shut down for that reason. Number 2, many of them do not have a basic business license. I'm not sure why they didn't get one, but anyway, they don't have one. And finally, the health department is able to enforce against edibles which are not prepared appropriately. So it's not a perfect situation, but working across a number of agencies, they're able to bring some attention to the owners of these shops and suggest that they move into a licensed position as opposed to unlicensed. My one concern, which I may bring back to this commission at a future time, is, okay, they had 18 facilities they identified in Georgetown only, and they only visited 8 of them. And I'm wondering whether, in fact, we need a more vigorous effort here, perhaps by additional means. But I will continue to watch this, and if there's something that I think that our commission might do, I will bring it back, and I would invite others to do the same. So that's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. It looks like Commissioner Gates may have a question for you.
I do. Commissioner Elkins, can you briefly describe what a gifting shop is
Yes, it's
versus a regular sales shop?
it's a shop that gives you that charges you for some item that you might not really need, like a T-shirt or a ballpoint pen or something, and for a fairly reasonable unreasonable price, and then for in return, as a favor to you for buying their product, they give you a gift of marijuana. This is a workaround on the statutes here in DC. We're somewhat constrained by the Congress, as you know, Alma. And so apparently this has been a loophole in the marijuana regulation, and the district council has found a way to deal with that, and is trying to move these shops into being licensed, in which they then can be controlled like alcohol beverage facilities. And of course, not all of them have chosen to do that. In fact, there's so many of them, I'm not sure that they all could move in. But anyway, that is what a gifting shop is.
And how do they identify themselves?
I'm not knowledgeable about that. I mean, I think people.
I think we can
outside.
answer. I think we can answer that. Commissioner
Okay,
Davis, I
good.
saw
Thank
your
you.
hand go up.
I've seen them advertise themselves as I-71 shops, you know,
Yeah.
and actually, and so I've seen that in various places. Also, just wanted to ask, did anybody know the history around when these places came about? Was it as a result of a referendum? Was it an initiative? It was not done by the city council. Anybody know the history there?
They're called I-71s because it was Initiative 71 and it passed in the 2014 election.
Okay, so it was an
And-
initiative. It's not,
and
we're
the
going to be
city-
discussing those later tonight. So I just thought.
And then it was blocked by Congress into going into effect. The laws that would allow DC to regulate recreational marijuana were blocked by Congress. And so that's why we don't have a good infrastructure around regulation on recreational marijuana. For a period of time, the police and drug teams would go in and close these shops. I remember some years ago serving on a grand jury, and we had a bunch of cases where they were coming in, and we would chuckle after a while. For anybody who doesn't know, grand juries run for weeks and weeks, and after a while, we'd hear that such and such barber shop had been raided, and we all chuckled because we knew it was going to be an I-71 case. But I think that over time, then as we've seen, there's been a change in philosophy, and now we've moved to these extension of medical marijuana cards and certification to get around the congressional blockages, but allow regulation by the district.
Regulated, yeah, more above water, above ground.
And Commissioner Gates, you'll see these stores sell under vape products, or CBD oil is another tagline. Organic CBD oil, that's a gifting shop. And then there's a lot of businesses that just do it word of mouth. Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt, did you?
Yeah, I had a question for Commissioner Elkins, I guess. You said they're using all these different methods to try to shut them down, but like, why is them not having a business license enough? Why do they need to talk about like the suppliers and stuff like that? I mean, is it not enough for MP to just be like, hey, you can't run this, you don't have a business license?
My sense is that none of these techniques are fully effective. If you don't have a business license, you can go get one. And so I don't think that you're forbidden to run this business in terms of getting a business license. So this is an attempt to all hands on deck approach, as I understand it, by the district to say, we thought we didn't have any way to shut them down. We're going to bring everybody to the front here, and we're going to see if we can't shut down most of them and move them. It's not just to shut them down, it's to move them into a licensed situation. Unfortunately, for some of these that are being asked now to switch, the license period is now closed because they didn't get the clue earlier to apply. So for some of them, it means actually to close down until they can apply.
Doesn't it also imply that they will have to pay taxes?
That's one of the promises of the regulated stores, and one of the reasons why the I-71 stores, why there's an incentive to operate in that manner, because you don't pay the excise taxes on the cannabis.
Because
They're selling it illegally, right? Because
They're gifting it. They're not selling it. They're gifting
Right.
it.
I'm sorry, I understand. Thank you.
Up next on our agenda are community updates. If you are here for something that is already on our agenda, this is not the time to raise your hand, but we do invite the public to bring concerns to our attention during our public meetings. But seeing no hands being raised, I am going to move on to our discussions. And up first is going to be George Washington University. We have the new president of the university with us, but I'm going to hand it over to our liaison, Kevin Days, to make that introduction. And if we can get them pinned with the commission, that would be great. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Again, my name is Kevin Days. I'm the Director of Community Relations here at the George Washington University. It's good to be back with you folks, even if it's virtually. I am pleased to be able to bring to you our 19th president, President Ellen Grantberg. She's sitting right next to me, and I'm going to turn it over and give most of my time to her.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin, and good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation and for giving me some time on your agenda. I have some brief prepared remarks, and then very happy to take questions if anyone has anything they'd like to ask. I've been the president of the George Washington University for 9 months now, and during that time, my wife Sonia and I have really loved getting to know this beautiful city and its really rich and diverse neighborhoods. We've been very warmly welcomed by our neighbors, and we're really starting to feel at home. In fact, one of the very first things Sonia and I did during my first week on the job was to attend the Palisades 4th of July parade, which was a wonderful event. It was our first visit to the neighborhood. We were both just so taken by the tree-lined streets and the wonderful community spirit. And I got a chance to meet a few of you at the event afterwards, and that was a great pleasure. And so it was a wonderful introduction to the city of DC and really memorable for both of us. Before I arrived at GW, I was the provost and senior vice president for academic affairs at the Rochester Institute of Technology, and also before that, a professor and a senior leader at Clemson University. Now, Clemson, Rochester, and Washington, DC, these are all very, very different cities and different schools, but at all three institutions, what I've really seen is how important it is to have strong relationships with our community members. And when I say that, I don't mean just transactional relationships that are born out of proximity, but really strong partnerships that are built on foundations of collaboration and trust, mutual goals and values. Here at GW, we are committed to contributing to our neighbors through partnership, service, through impact, and by ensuring that our collective communities remain vibrant and fulfilling places to live, work, and learn. I'm sure you've noticed that our Mount Vernon campus has come alive again with the arrival of the spring. I've had many, many opportunities to visit the Mount Vernon campus, been to student productions there, to some athletics events. I've toured the campus and met with students. I really enjoy my time visiting there and getting to know the students up there. Always in the spring as well, we engage in a lot of community service with our students. And one of those is our yearly recognition and celebration of the life and contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This year, we marked the holiday with GW's annual MLK Day of Service and Leadership, where GW students and members of the local communities came together to volunteer at 13 different organizations and schools across the district. And this is just one example of many that highlight GW's dedication to teaching students the value of community engagement and the importance of having a local impact. I also know that many of you enjoy a positive and productive relationship with several individuals at our university. And I want to ensure that we provide opportunities to expand and strengthen the relationship between the community and GW. There are a lot of events on campus that we hope you, our neighbors, will attend. For example, you're all invited to come out and root for the GW women's softball team as they take on Coppin State at the GW field next Wednesday. Our annual Fountain Day will take place on April 20th. That's a wonderful event for families, and we hope that many of you will be able to attend. So I really want to thank you for your partnership and for inviting me here this evening. Kevin's told me a lot about the work that we have done with the community around the Mount Vernon campus, and I'm really looking forward to working with each of you. I know we all share the common goal of building a better future for everyone who lives and works in the Washington, D.C. community. So I'm going to stop there, and I'd be very happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for President Granberg? I will say that there are a lot of people in our neighborhood who don't know there's 1,000 students living here. It's a lot. It may even be more now. I am not sure.
It's a little bit less than that. It's about 800.
A little bit less than 1,000. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I did meet you at the 4th of July parade. Yeah. We're doing it again this year. So Great. Hopefully we'll see you all out there.
Sounds terrific.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
This month, we are actually lucky to have 2 DC agencies join us, and we're going to hear from the Department of Motor Vehicles and the new things that they have to share, and the Office of Campaign Finance. And I want to tell everyone I flipped a coin and DMV got the first spot. So we are going to spotlight Director Robinson. Thank you. And do you have, is it Miss Pete is on your team also?
Miss Pete? No, it's just me.
Okay, just you. Okay. All right. Thank you. Director Robinson, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Commissioner. And thank you so much to the Commission for having me tonight to just talk about what's happening at your DC DMV. So I'm delighted to be here. I am Gabriel Robinson, and I am pleased to be the director of this great agency for the past 5 years. So I wanted to come tonight just to speak about some of the initiatives that we've completed this year, so you'll know what's happening at your agency. And then, of course, take a moment to answer any questions that you may have. So I hope not to take too much time, but just want to run through a couple of things about how we at the DMV are trying to keep the community safe as we have a mission for the safe operation of motor vehicles and public safety. And of course, while doing that with customer service. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about is earlier this year, the DMV did update its website to provide information for individuals that are active duty military and foreign service, individuals who may need to get some type of DMV services, particularly to renew their license when they're not eligible to do it online, but they're out of the DC area. They may be on an international assignment. They may be on a domestic assignment, but not near the District of Columbia and can't get here. Oftentimes they've had to do some one-on-one emails to get services, and we've been trying to make that process a little easier for them, as we know that this is a situation that a number of people in this community are in when they're active duty or foreign service members. So we've completed that, and we have a little bit more work that we want to do on that initiative, but we have gotten the majority of that work done. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that the DMV continues to do more and more outreach as it relates to the ignition interlock device. That's for any individual that receives a DUI or drug and alcohol conviction while driving under the influence. we do require them by mandate that they must install an ignition interlock device on their vehicle. And they must do it within a certain amount of time before we would revoke their license and the registrations to the vehicles registered in their name. And that's all the vehicles registered in their name. So if you have 3 vehicles, we will revoke the registration to all 3 if you don't come into compliance. And we're continuing that outreach because it is a new requirement that you must enroll into the program. So our adoption rate isn't as high as we would like it to be. But for those individuals who are not in compliance, then they do have a revoked license at this point. So they must come into compliance because that revocation will last indefinitely on their license until they go through the ignition interlock program. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the DC DMV app. If you don't have the app, we ask you to download the app. Just go to wherever you get your apps from, which is the Google App Store or the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Just type in DC DMV. We have a myriad of transactions that you can do now just from your phone or your iPad device, where you can get your DMV services wherever you are on the run quite easily, including paying a ticket, or most recently, what we've added is that you can get your inspection status for your vehicle and the actual inspection report that you get at the end of your inspection. If you lost that sheet, you need it for whatever reason, you can go to our app and you can download and receive the actual report that you receive at the inspection station if you need it for some reason. Additionally, the DMV, we have recently updated our driver manual for individuals that are new drivers that need to study the rules of the road to ensure that they are successful in their efforts to pass the knowledge test and then, of course, the skills test. We recently updated the manual such that it is more user-friendly. We did it in all of the 7 required languages. And it is just more up to date with more technology built into the actual electronic manual so that you can watch videos and all kinds of things right from the comfort of your home as you're studying. Also, the DMV is hiring. So we participated in the mayor's last 2 hiring fair events, one in February, one was in November. November of last year. We are hiring. As you know, we did receive a number of additional hearing examiners. Those are the people who hear tickets when you want to dispute a ticket. We got a number of those last year as a result of the expansion of the ATE program. And so the DMV needed more resources in order to adjudicate tickets if individuals believe that those tickets were issued in error and had evidence to prove such. So we are hiring. So if you know individuals that's looking for a job, please don't sleep on the DMV. We're a great place to work. The other thing I do want to talk about, just 2 more things really quickly. We have also 3 things included on our website where you can go and get real-time information on recalls that your vehicle may have that you may not have addressed. And it is very important that individuals stay up to date on recalls. So you can go to our website. I will go to the search bar and type in recall, vehicle recall. There's a link where you can put in your VIN number and it will tell you if your vehicle has any outstanding recalls that you may need to address with your dealership. I'll stick here. The last thing, DMV recently opened our second inspection, OBD inspection kiosk at Fort Stanton Park in Ward 8. We currently have one. We currently have one in Ward 4 at the Tacoma Rec Center. And so we now have a second one. We were hoping to open 3. But the third one at Kenilworth, we're having to relocate that one. So we are looking for a new home for a third device that we have already purchased. And so we do hope to have 3 of those kiosks available in the near future, but 2 are available. If your vehicle is a 2005 or newer and you need to renew your vehicle inspection, you can use either one of these kiosks. It's available for you 24/7. You can go at your own time. If your vehicle is not 2005 and newer, you cannot use the kiosk. You must go to the station, and you must go to the station if it is your first inspection. So you cannot do the initial inspection at the kiosk. You must go to the station there. So those are some of the things we're working on. There's a number of other items that, of course, we are working on and want to talk about. Of course, the mayor just released the budget today, so we're all getting caught up and getting our talking points on that since it was just released. So I'm not prepared to talk about that tonight. As you know, the representative said, we do hope to come back next month. But I'll pause there on the DMV. I'm happy to take any questions. I did see a comment. Someone said they had an excellent visit at the DMV, and so kudos to my team. Hopefully that is the norm and not the exception. Commissioner Duncan, I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
So I'm going to just chime in with a story. The last time I was at the Georgetown DMV, I parked in the garage and I was in and out of the DMV with success so fast, I didn't have to pay for parking.
See, look.
It was less than 15 minutes.
This is what we're doing. This is not your grandmother's DMV anymore. We don't want you sitting there for 4 hours. We want you to get your service, get out of there, get back to your day.
And we have been there before when we haven't had all of our documents, which is very frustrating, but your staff there was, they were kind and sent us on our way. And then we came back and did what we were supposed to do. So yeah, I think you've got a really nicely run facility there. Commissioner Simkowitz, did I see you with your hand raised?
Yeah. What's going on with the program where you can have an electronic driver's license like Maryland? Do we have an electronic program yet?
We do not have an electronic program at the moment. It is something that we're seeking. We are in talks and research of it. And so I will hope in the coming years, as you know, our financial outlook right now, you know, new programs are not, you know, getting funding currently, unless it is an absolute must have. And most states do not have an electronic driver's license. So it's not an absolute must, but it is something that I'm interested in pursuing. My team have already done a litany of research. And I sit on the board of the American Association of Motor Vehicles Administrators. And so that is something we talk about all the time between my colleagues and other DMV directors for all of the other 50 states, including those in Canada, the provincial DMV directors there as well. So stay tuned. I hope in a couple of years we will have that.
Commissioner Elkins?
Director Robinson, thank you for all these things you're doing. The one thing that comes to mind is I think the council considered during the last 12 months the STEER bill. I'm not sure whether it passed or not. I'm right.
It passed.
It did. Great. And one of the things that I understand that bill was doing was saying we're not in the business of collecting money from people so much as we're trying to change behavior. And they gave your department an important role, several important roles, I think, but one that I was focused on was constructing an educational program for safe driving so that people who you know, are found to be violating our district laws for speeding or whatever would get a good chance to change their behavior. Do you already have such a program, or are you developing a new program? What am I?
So
that does require your department?
Let me provide a couple of things. So first, the STEER Act did pass, but it passed subject to appropriation. So it's not effective at the moment because they must find all the funding necessary in order to implement it, which is not a cheap price tag. So given, you know, where we are with the budget and economics, I'm not quite sure if it will go into effect anytime soon, but I don't know that. Council may find the money during this process where they have the budget in their hands. But going back to your question about driver education programs already exist at the district for district government. And in fact, my hearing examiners require people to go through driving classes if they have accumulated enough points, they've gotten a DUI. There's all kinds of ways that an individual can be instructed or ordered in order to get their license back to go through a driver education course. The STEER Act requires DMV to come up with a course that is dedicated to certain topics of driving behavior. And it's primarily for individuals getting ATE tickets. Now, there are some elements of the STEER Act that I still hope to work with council to even adjust as we're going through this process of finding the appropriated dollars necessary to implement it, because having an individual go through a driver educational class for ATE ticket when you're not sure if that person that's going through the class was the person driving the vehicle, then did the class really do what you intended? I just forced the owner of the car, just like we forced the owner of the car to pay the ticket, because, hey, if I let you drive my car, then I assume responsibility and I pay the ticket. And if I want my money back, I come and talk to you and say, give me my money back. I know you were driving, right? But that doesn't work that well for educational program. So there's some things, but yes, you're right. That is the intended requirement, but I'm not so sure if it would yield the exact results that the council was looking for. But we will give it a good effort, assuming that the appropriated dollars are found.
Good, thank you.
Seeing no other hands raised, I want to thank you for taking the time to come. I'm assuming you're reaching out to all the ANCs, and we learn a lot every time the agency heads come. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And up next is the Office of Campaign Finance. And Miss Pete, thank you so much. I got you confused. You are with Office of Campaign Finance. I might have you written on my paper. Welcome to ANC3D.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us to be here. Like she said, my name is Calvinetta Pete. I'm actually a hearing officer / attorney with the Office of Campaign Finance. I'm in the Office of the General Counsel. And tonight is my first time being in an event like this. I'm actually filling in for a coworker. So I please apologize if things seem a little choppy tonight in me explaining things. But I just want to just go over some of the key points of our agency and what we do and our missions and our goals. And the Office of Campaign Finance is basically, our mission is to regulate and provide public disclosure to financial operations for candidates and committees in both the traditional private financing, and we now have the public financing programs. And we're kind of proud of now that we have the public financing program, which we launched in 2019. And in addition to that, our main goal is to foster voluntary compliance for candidates and committees when it comes to reporting their financial statements and disclosing certain financial paperwork, receipts, expenditures, and therefore. In addition to that, we have 5 divisions within the Office of Campaign Finance. The first being the Office of the Director, which is ran by Cecily Collier Montgomery. We also have the Public Information and Records Division, which we now have a new manager for that division. Her name is Camille Key. Our next division would be the Reports Analysis and Audit Division, which handles the private financing program. We also call them RAD, and the manager for that division is Renee Coleman. And our next department is the Fair Elections program, which is our public financing program, which is directed by Eric Jackson. And lastly, the Office of the General Counsel, which I'm a member of. And these are all the divisions within the Office of Campaign Finance, and we all work together to make sure that we are, like I said, fostering voluntary compliance with candidates and committees when it comes to filing their financial disclosures and making sure that they're reporting their financial statements in a timely manner so that we can then post that information online so that we're showing transparency to the public. I'm going to kind of do what everybody else has been doing. I'm going to be short, simple, and sweet. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I do just want to highlight my main focus tonight is on the Fair Elections program. The traditional program, most people are kind of familiar with. They have a different threshold when it comes to obtaining contribution from contributors versus the financial program. And that's because with the public financing program, individuals are receiving money from the Fair Elections Program Fund to match what they're obtaining from small dollar contributors. And these are district residents and non-district residents. The public financing program does not accept contributions from business contributors, partnerships, or bundling Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. This is mainly contributions from small dollar contributors. Each office that a person is seeking or candidates are seeking has a different threshold that they need to meet in order to be certified in the Fair Elections Program. And if at the end of this, if anyone wants me to actually give out those numbers, I will. But just to let you know that they do have to be certified. In order to be certified, they have to obtain a certain amount of small dollar contributions from district residents and non-district residents. And that threshold can be, say for instance, with the mayor, they have to attain 1,000 small dollar contributions from contributors that total an amount of $40,000. So like I said, each office has their own threshold that needs to be met. Once a candidate has become certified within our program, they fill out an affidavit, they've attested to certain declarations within the program parameters, then we issue them matching payments. And the matching payments, again, are going to be based on the office that is sought. In addition to matching payments, these individuals or candidates and committees may also receive base amount payments. And the base amount payments are only paid out if the particular office that is sought is contested. So if there's more than one candidate in that office, then the base amount payments will be issued. Sometimes they may not receive the full base amount payment. Sometimes it may be half the base amount payment, depending on what is going on at that particular time during the election period, or the qualifying period, as we call it. Let's see. In addition to matching payments and base amount payments, there is a mandatory training program, not only in the public financing division, but also in the private financing division, in which treasurers and candidates have to participate in our mandatory training program. And that can be, well, we're not doing in-person training programs right now since post-COVID, but it's online. And if anyone has an issue, or not an issue, but has a hardship with doing the online program or participating in our online program, they can also do a PowerPoint, meaning that we have virtual classes. So if they can't do the virtual classes, they can actually do the PowerPoint program on our website.
I love PowerPoint and I love joining.
Thank you. In addition to the training requirement, there's also a debate requirement, and program participants may be required to partake in the public debate for each contested citywide primary, special, or general election in an election cycle for a covered office. That's another requirement for the program for those who are certified as a participating candidate. But outside of that, I mean, we have certain filing deadlines that they're required to meet. And there are certain reports that certain candidates and committees are required to file. If they miss those filing deadlines, then that kind of trickles to my division, the Office of the General Counsel, in which we are charged with basically enforcing compliance. And again, even in the General Counsel division, our goal is voluntary compliance. So, we're not out there trying to beat people over the head, trying to say, file your report, or trying to, I guess, bombard them with fines. We prefer that they actually voluntarily comply on their own by filing their statements, and also providing us with a, some type of explanation as to why they did not timely file, to show, and those orders that we do are posted online, and the community can see when we post those orders online that we actually have taken steps to figure out why this person has not filed on time, and that we're taking it very seriously. And if their, I should say, explanation is not sufficient enough, then it's up to the discretion of whoever the hearing examiner or the attorney advisor to determine whether or not a fine should be assessed. But that's not our first go-to resort when we are forced to enforcements. In addition to the Fair Elections Program and the private program, we also do investigations on complaints from constituents, complaints from other candidates, complaints from committees. And our general counsel, which is Bill Sanford, he handles those complaints, as well as some other members within the Office of the General Counsel. I think I've covered just about enough. If there's any questions.
Thank you. You all do so much. I have some questions that are just sort of general. The Fair Elections Program, because it is new, but you've had several election cycles so far. Have you seen it in general as a success? And do you think it is the city can afford to do it? It seems like more candidates are running, which I think is great for democracy, but the more candidates dipping into these funds also is I'm assuming that comes out of the general budget of the city.
So to be honest with you, as far as where the money comes from, I do not know, like I'm in the general counsel division, but I can tell you, so since the first election cycle, which in 2020, we had about 56 individuals in that particular election cycle, but only about, give me one second, pulled it up on my computer here. 2020, out of the 56, only about 34 were certified.
Okay.
So that means that 21 missed the threshold, meaning that they did not have the all the materials or certifications, small dollar contributions that they needed in order to certify. And in 2022, there were 51 individuals that participated in the Fair Elections Program. 42 were certified, and 10 did not meet their threshold. And then as far as 2024, right now we have 24 people. 15 right now are certified, 9 are not, 9 have not met the threshold. And at this point in time, and when it comes to the base amount payments, we've expended about $245,000. And as far as matching payments for this 2024 election cycle, it's been about $1,608,123.95 that has been dispersed in matching payments. Did that answer some of your question?
Yeah, no, it did. It seems to me that it seems to me that it's working fairly well. Do any commissioners, Commissioner Elkins?
Forgive me if you answered this question already, but many of us are on the receiving end of solicitations for donations to these candidates who are being publicly financed. And I want to make sure, and I'm sure others do too, that we don't over contribute and get them in trouble. So what are the rules about how much money we can contribute to a candidate? And it doesn't vary depending on whether they, where it is in the election cycle.
So it doesn't, so depending on the FEP program, the Fair Elections Program versus a traditional program, in the traditional program, and each office that is sought has a different criteria. So for instance, in the traditional program, there are no limitations on how many people can contribute. For instance, for the mayor, you can contribute up to $2,000 within that election cycle. So you can do 500 at one point in time, another 500 another time, but you can't exceed $2,000. In the Fair Elections Program, let me just make sure I get to this. So the maximum amount that an individual can contribute is $200 for mayor. For the office of chairman of council or the attorney general, it's also $200. For the office of ward member of council, it's $100. And it goes lower than that for $50 for the state board of election, and $20, I'm sorry, $50 for the office member of council elected for a ward or member of the state board of election, and then $20 for the office member of a state board of education elected for a ward. So there are different caps for each office that is sought.
So, so what happens if I contribute $100 to a council member who's under the Fair Elections Program, and then I get another one of these general solicitations? I say, oh yeah, I want to support this person, so I send another $100. Well, that's $200. I've exceeded that person's $100. What happens then? Does that person get in trouble, or are they supposed to be watching to make sure that I don't send too much money? Or
Yes, they are. So, in that case, if it was $100, if you sent the $100 in for like a council member at large, well, the cap was $100 and you actually sent in $200. That's where our audit division comes into play. Each traditional, call it traditional, but the private financing program has a separate audit division, which is RAD, and then the FEP has a separate audit division. So their team members are looking for those excessive contributions, as we call them. And if we see that, or if they see that, typically what they do is they reach out to the committee to say that we see excessive contribution and you need to refund that money to the individual that provided that contribution. And then they ask for supporting documents like a canceled check or some type of letter that they sent out to the individual saying, you know, unfortunately, you provided us an excessive contribution. We are refunding you this money. And they provide the audit division with that, you know, documentation to say that they have actually reached out to that individual to show that they have refunded that money. And then on their report that they have to do, they have to reconcile that on their reports.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And what they would do is an amended report.
That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can attest that they find every single one because I accidentally gave Brian Schwab I donated twice and it was a big problem for him and a lot of paperwork, and I was sorry about it. It was an accident. Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt.
Does OCF enforce like FCC violations? Because I don't know if the other commissioners have gotten the same thing here, but there is a certain candidate in Ward 7 who has been robocalling me over and over again, which is a violation of FCC rules, like very clearly. And so is the enforcement up to you, or is it up to them, or how would that work?
So we do not enforce FEC regulations, statutes, anything like that. And if they are in the traditional program or the private financing program, there has been some protocol around that. I'm not completely sure about it. I can put in the chat if you actually want to hear more about it, a couple of people that I can put you in contact with their email address. That may be better to answer that question for you.
Sure, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. I'll do that.
Are there any other questions? You were terrific for filling in at the last minute, so thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say you all sent us a fact sheet and we will be posting it on our website under this, so that will be very helpful. Thank
Great,
you.
yes, because everything that I kind of covered, we actually have it extensively on our website.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Commissioner Davis? Okay, all right.
I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. It sounds like your office is making the rounds too, and the ANCs really do appreciate the effort you all put in.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
All right, our last item up for discussion is Wesley Seminary. And if we could there we go, Pat Brown. Mr. Brown, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Are you going to be showing any slides?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. So you'll give a brief update and then we're going to open this up for questions. And I have seen on here that we've got some neighbors that might also be interested. So take it away.
Okay, thank you. Patrick Brown from Greenstein to Lorman Lux. I've been Wesley's Land Use Council for almost 20 years now, I'm here on behalf of David McAllister Wilson. He is traveling out of town and tied up and can't even access the meeting given his schedule. What I want to do is just give a brief update. Many of you, I see Dennis, Paul, Alma, and others who were at the early March CLC meeting. I'm going to basically build on that agenda very quickly. We are putting together a proposal, and I think it's important that this is a proposal, not a formal application to submit to the Zoning Commission to get their input as a next step in moving forward in something more formal. We're proposing a number of things. First is the exemption of this new dormitory from inclusionary zoning. Now, that exemption may take one of two forms, but the exemption would be tied directly to, as we've been requested by ANC3E, an offsite IZ program focused on Ward 3, and that we would be making an investment in IZ in a value of $6 to $8 million. The exact dollar figure is yet to be determined. And we, Wesley, would not be the ultimate determinant of that amount. But the goal would be to support an offsite locations from the campus, IZ in Ward 3. We're looking at a number of options. The Valor project was mentioned earlier. We've had discussions with Valor. To be honest, they have not expressed any interest in participating. Discussions will continue, but I don't want to mislead anybody. We're looking at several methods. One, to find an offsite location where we can provide direct IZ support. That could take the form of buying down market rate units to IZ units. It could support the construction of actual IZ units. It could involve buying down the rents on existing IZ units to make them more affordable. It could also, one of the possibilities is providing seed money financing for a IZ project that would allow the acquisition of the land, and where financing is most difficult at that stage, to allow control of a site for an IZ project. We're looking at all the options. We don't expect to have a firm option by time we go back to the zoning commission file, but we're laying out a system to identify and find a home for the IZ funds in Ward 3. We're also looking at a minor text amendment to clarify compliance with the campus plan procedures. And we're looking at the impact of these steps on the procedural status of the current campus plan and PUD, and whether proceeding with the PUD would be necessary. And then a couple of things that came up. One, we raised the proposal to reduce the level of parking in the underground garage in the new dormitory by about 26%. That would be a reduction of 95 spaces in that garage, and reduce overall campus parking to about 299 spaces underground and surface spaces. And we're continuing to explore that, and also look at the impacts on parking and parking restrictions and enforcement necessary to prevent spillover into the neighborhood. More recently, we've had a request, and we're looking at the options for providing some sort of barrier, and that's kind of overstating it, but some sort of system to provide restrictions on the use of University Avenue for both vehicles, which we've committed to restrict with certain exceptions, and also to control pedestrian traffic. We're working on a proposal that might meet those needs. I can't present it right now, but it's being worked on and taken seriously. And then we're just continuing the process. We're in close contact with your ANC. We're in very close contact with ANC3E, and they've been very active in looking at the IZ, offsite IZ options, and have provided valuable input. And I would anticipate that they would be part of an ongoing process to take a proposal to a final plan. That's really all I have. We've got the ANC3E meeting coming up next Thursday, a week from tomorrow. Our submission is due to the Zoning Commission on April 25th, and we'll be back here May 1 for ANC3D, ANC3E on May 8th, and then the Zoning Commission will take all this up on May 9th. And that's not to say that other communications or activities involving all the interested parties won't occur in addition to those, but that's the basic framework as we sit right now.
I'm going to just jump in and some questions, because not all of the commissioners here have been as deeply involved in what is going on. Right now, the last thing that we considered was this PUD alongside a campus plan. And if I'm hearing you correctly, the text amendment would be a text amendment that the Zoning Commission would hear to amend the text. That, are you thinking it's going to possibly do the text amendment would be in the substitution of the PUD? The PUD would perhaps go away, and is the text amendment mostly to address the IZ? Could you speak to a little bit of that to clarify?
Well, the Zoning Commission will be the ultimate arbiter of
Correct.
what they think the procedures need. But we think that in following the text amendment process may allow the PUD to fall away. That would be procedural. It would not change the plan. We're not envisioning any significant changes to the plan other than what I've mentioned, the parking reduction and University Avenue restrictions. So the plan itself would stay, and it's a procedural question. The text amendments would resolve the IZ issue as well as the campus plan compliance issue, I believe.
Okay. And the idea that instead of doing IZ student housing there would be this fund. And is the Zoning Commission the final arbiter of approval of any kind of proposal along that line?
From a zoning standpoint, yes. The implementation of an offsite IZ from a actual IZ Department of Housing and Community Development would be their enforcement, but the Zoning Commission would have to approve the offsite plan and then leave it to the typical enforcement of IZ through the other agencies. And that was one of the points ANC3E raised. They had great concerns that a student-only IZ program or affordable housing program was not appropriately or adequately enforceable. And two, that a better use of IC resources that Wesley was going to provide would be in the Ward 3 rather than on the campus. And so we're trying to tailor our response to satisfy both those goals.
So whatever your response is, your deadline is April 25th. Is that what you just said?
That's correct.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Colon-Roosevelt.
Wait, so has an IZ thing like this been tried before? Or are there other examples of this throughout DC where you won't put IZ on the property, but you'll fund it somewhere else to make up for it?
Well, the zoning regulations make a specific provision for meeting IZ requirements at an offsite location. So the concept is built into the regulations. It's a little bit different here. It's a variation on the same theme. And the extent of exporting all the IZ compliance to offsite is of a greater magnitude than typically occurs, but again, it's in a lane that exists now.
I think it makes sense. I mean, I think 3 is right here. I think the IZ should probably be for non-student housing. I also would like to say that I strongly support any attempts to reduce the parking that you have currently planned, because I think it's a massive expansion that really doesn't need to happen. I mean, AU students don't need to be bringing their cars here. The people who live on campus mostly don't have cars. The people who live just off campus down Mass don't mostly have cars. And I think you're incentivizing them to bring their cars to our neighborhood instead of having them use public transportation. And I think that could cause some really bad traffic problems here. So,
okay.
Commissioner Elkins?
Madam Chairman, I just wanted to clarify that I think what's planned here is that on our May 1st meeting, we will have a full presentation of what the Theological Seminary has presented to the Zoning Commission, and then potentially we could vote on a letter to the Zoning Commission. The Zoning Commission, in responding to our letter requesting a delay, did give us until the next day, May 2nd, to file our comments. So if ANC feels that we have comments to make, we could make them following a presentation at our May 1st meeting. So I think that was sort of implied, but I just want to make sure that my fellow commissioners understand that we have the potential to take this up in some more detail and with a letter to the Zoning Commission, which would need to be filed by the next day after our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna, if there's no other commissioners, I'm gonna open this up. And I see Mr. Carter has his hand raised. Go ahead, Mr. Carter, you're up.
Yeah, quick question to Pat. Pat, you mentioned that you were going to be doing a proposal, a less formal and not an application. What exactly are you filing on April 25th to the commission? Will that be the application? In other words, will the proposal be ahead of that? Or is it a proposal on the 25th?
It's the proposal on the
Okay,
25th.
Thank you.
Miss Commissioner Gates, you're up. I think you're muted.
When you actually file these two regulation changes, the text changes that you're proposing, what sort of hearing notice, what sort of notice are you required to give? Is it just part of this application, or because you're changing the regulations, is it something that has to have a full hearing?
A text amendment would be separate from the two pending applications. It would require us to file a text amendment application as a separate case, subject to the public notice, public hearing, and input from the affected ANCs and others. So it would run its normal course over the months to come. Certainly nothing would occur on May 9th from the Zoning Commission that would be a decision that would have any impact. We hope to get guidance or feedback from the commission, and then that would guide our formal process of whether it's a text amendment application or some other mechanism.
May I ask another question?
Sure, Alma.
Thank you. With this proposed IZ program where you're doing it offsite, the rooms that were, or the beds that were allotted for the IZ program in your initial concept, what happens to those beds? How are they treated in the future under your new proposal?
That the on-campus beds would be exempt from IZ and would be, for lack of a better term, market rate, unrestricted.
So Wesley would actually be earning money if this text amendment is proposed.
Well, they'd be earning market rates on all the, and to be honest, Wesley isn't earning it. Landmark would be earning the money and then paying the ground lease payments, but rents would be at market rate. But as I mentioned earlier, a financial investment of $6 to $8 million, and that's just a educated guess. That's not a final confirmed number. Others will have to look over our shoulder on that from the government. But so they'd be receiving more rent, but they'd be paying funds out to support the offsite IZ.
And so once that IZ is paid up, the $6 to $8 million is paid, then Wesley or Landmark gets 100%.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, seeing no other hands raised, I am certain that we will be seeing you back here again at our next meeting on May 1st.
Absolutely. Everyone, enjoy some spring, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Pat.
Take care, Alma.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Okay, we are on to our official actions. I am going to go through these in a quick but comprehensive manner. Up first is the D.NOI on the diplomatic parking proposal on New Mexico, 44th Street near New Mexico. Commissioner Elkins, is there a motion on the floor?
Madam Chairman, I move that we adopt a letter opposing this notice of information from the Department of Transportation, and I ask for a second.
I'll second that.
Here is the situation here that this embassy has been vacant for a good number of years. Prior to that time, it was the embassy for a number of Caribbean countries. It has now been renovated to everybody's pleasure, and it has now been reoccupied by one embassy, St. Kitts and Nevis, and they have now applied to Department of Transportation to, in addition to their parking lot, which is on site, which has enough room for at least 6 vehicles, if not more, if they wanted to use it efficiently. They've asked for 3 parking spaces to be identified as diplomatic parking on 44th Street, which is right on the back side of the embassy. Normally, this would be perfectly fine. But many of you, I think, will remember that we've been working for many years with the Department of Transportation with regard to the implementation of the parking, the bike path, protected bike path down New Mexico Avenue, which is where this embassy is located. It's located right across from 3301, the doctor's building on New Mexico. Most of you are familiar with that. And as part of that implementation for the bike path, the department decided that it was necessary to put in a left turn lane into Macomb Street, and that took away a lot of parking from the commercial buildings at 3301, the doctor's building, and the 3201, which is owned by American University, but occupied by a number of restaurants, et cetera. This has had, in anticipation of that, we worked with DDOT to say, well, look, if you're going to take away this parking, which people use to go in and make short-term commercial visits, we need to provide some alternative, even if it isn't equivalent. And they did redesignate the parking situation on Macomb, and they fixed additional parking spaces on 44th Street, which is where we're now discussing. So here the embassy is coming in and asking for 3 of those spaces to be identified for diplomatic, which means that normal customers of these buildings could not use them. Normally, I, as the commissioner for this area, would not oppose this, but I think that this is, we've already cut back the parking for these merchants, and this is just something that even 3 spaces is significant. And so I'm asking that this commission oppose this designation, and the letter lays out the arguments that I've just expressed in argument about why the department, in an unusual situation, normally they would just approve this as a matter of course. I believe that they should, in this case, oppose this. So that is the letter, and I'm hoping that this commission will support it.
Does anyone have any questions for Commissioner Elkins? All right, I'm going to call the questions. All those in favor of sending this letter of opposition? Passes unanimously. Thank you for all of your work on that, Commissioner Elkins. Up next on our agenda is the letter asking the Department of Buildings to share the draft permit for 5122 Cathedral Avenue. This has been broken out into 2 letters. And Commissioner Elkins, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to go ahead and introduce the first one.
Yes.
Okay, the motion on the floor is that we send a letter to the Department of Buildings asking them to send ANC3D the building permit drawings prior to the building permit being issued at 5122 Cathedral Avenue. Do I have a second? Commissioner Nowak seconds the motion. So the Department of Buildings generally makes us wait until after, but we have been to the zoning commission, or the BZA 4 times now. And we were there earlier this month. Commissioner Horn and I were on the BZA, and once again, the Department of Buildings revoked the building permit because it once again was in violation of the zoning regulations. This time, there was communication between ANC3D and the Department of Buildings. So we have made a lot of progress. The builder was there. He was extremely annoyed. Once the Department of Buildings revoked this building permit, he has 60 days to appeal that. But he was informed by the BZA that he couldn't use our appeal because we were the appellant. He would have to get in line with everyone else, and it was going to take him, 6 months to get on the docket. We are now in the period of we do not know what the builder is going to do. So this letter is basically asking the Department of Buildings, could you give us the permits before you issue them for the first time in your policy lives, so that we can avoid doing this? And the one friendly amendment I'm going to change, the last sentence here, it says, if you wish to make this review part of the review that neighbors are given, I'm going to put in there, it's called neighbor notification. So I'll just put those 2 words in there. And Commissioner Elkins, I have to say, did all of the work here. Are there any questions?
My only quick question is, Madam Chair, do you have a sense of whether this will be accepted by the department? Not to say that should prevent us one way or the other from sending it, but I am curious if you think that you'll find a friendly audience to this request.
So we had a meeting with the Department of Buildings, and Kathleen Beaton, the new zoning administrator, had said, you know, I'm going to look into this. They are certainly not going to want to do anything that is going to add staff work or money or anything to the Department of Buildings. But there is already a neighbor notification process where the builders have to give the plans to the neighbors. And I don't recommend a blanket, we don't want, the ANCs don't want every single building permit that's issued in our ANC. We might be crushed with paper. But there might be a way that if we formally ask, if an SMD commissioner formally asks, or if a commission votes to ask to have this information ahead of time, that might be something that they could then say to the builder, hey, this got triggered. You're going to also have to give a set to the ANC. It's kind of, our next letter actually has a bunch of long-term ideas for them.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to confuse our specific ask with the long-term, hey, this is how we think you should do your policies.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Are there ever any, was there any indication about how many limits there might be, or is there a limit on how many times a builder can resubmit a permit on a single property? I mean, can this go on, I mean, forever, or at some point it seems like
forever, but
it can, wow. So I would think
meanwhile,
even the BZA would somehow make them walk away or force them to, I mean, we saw just down the street from me it wasn't a forced sale, but they filled in the hole from another builder, a scofflaw builder that kind of walked away from a project.
so on Sherrier, the difference here is that on Sherrier, he has actually violated what he submitted to DOB.
Okay.
Whereas on Cathedral, even though their original building permit was submitted in error, he had a building permit when he built what was there. Now, they may make him tear some of that out because they made a mistake, but in retrospect, he would have torn down that building and then he would have been in the same spot as the guy on Sherrier. But so far, the Department of Buildings thinks that he has kept enough of the house that he possibly could build a new house, considering it an addition, not a raise. We dispute that, but we never got to argue that in front of the BZA. So we're not sure. He's in a pickle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he would kind of be tempted to walk away if it's going to take another 6 months. I mean, he's losing money, the builder, as long as this thing sits unfinished.
We also happen to know he's taking a loan out. You know, obviously the builders, they use other people's money for this, which is they're allowed to do, but the money you get is based on the home that you had presented that you were going to have at the end of your building permit. So I'm sure that things are very complicated for him right now. But he did lie to the Department of Buildings on his drawings, and he did try to deceive the ANC and the Department of Buildings on numerous occasions. So I don't feel sorry for him.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and call the question. All those in favor of sending this letter? Passes unanimously. Then Commissioner Elkins, I'm going to have you go ahead and introduce the second letter.
Well, my colleagues will not be surprised that although we as ANC commissioners usually address individual issues such as the Cathedral Avenue issue, that I am inclined many times to draw some broader conclusions from our experience, because if we only get satisfaction with regard to the Cathedral issue, we have all of our colleagues across the district who are being potentially subjected to the same situation and subjected to the same procedures. And if there are some improvements that could be made in the department, and my sense is this new director is interested in having ideas come in and to try to improve the department, that I believe we should go on and make these suggestions. And so I have drawn some conclusions in this letter, which I'm asking for a second so we can discuss it.
Commissioner Nowak seconds the motion.
So I drew, let's see, 5 conclusions from our experience that I think can be generalized. And let me tell you in just a few sentences what they are. Number 1 is that while we are asking for the ability to look at a permit before it is approved, that is in draft, that there are on other occasions where other ANCs or we may want that, probably in rare cases for the reasons that the chairwoman mentioned, that we don't want to be inundated with all these permits, but where we ask for it or a commissioner asks for it, we're suggesting that at least on a pilot basis, the department try to provide that. That's the first recommendation. The second recommendation is, I think that although this commission has some very talented capabilities, not every commission, in terms of spotting illegal construction, not every commission has those same talents. And even people like myself could benefit from some training so that I could be better at spotting these illegal constructions. I find myself mystified by drawings myself. I don't know why that is. I'm not a 3-dimensional person or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, I would appreciate some training, and I think other commissioners would too. So the second recommendation is that some training for commissioners across the district in terms of spotting on site in the neighborhood violations, potential violations of the regulations and zoning would be useful. It would expand the eyes and ears of the department, which the director made clear to us when we met with him the other day that he doesn't have enough inspectors. A third recommendation is to ask that as ANC commissioners who are part of the DC government, even though uncompensated, that they might extend the same courtesy to us as they do to other departments when we raise issues. That it's not that they should agree with us, but they should look at these in a serious manner. Essentially try to harness the energy that exists out in the community for looking for things that would be damaging to the community. A fourth recommendation is a change in the way in which the department deals with the potential, a communication from an ANC that we plan to appeal their permit or that we in fact do appeal their permit. This typical response of an agency, I think, is that when an agency is essentially sued in this sense or challenged, challenged, that the general counsel's office gears up to defend the department in every legal way possible. I found that true in my experience when I joined the general counsel's office of the Environmental Protection Agency and suggested that whenever anybody sues the Environmental Protection Agency, that the general counsel's office and the agency should consider it a possible mistake on the part of the agency and should re-examine it. And I was told, no, you must be kidding. Our job is to defend the administrator come hell or high water, and that's what we do. And whether that is the attitude of the Department of Buildings, I don't know, but they certainly treated us in the case of Cathedral exactly in that manner. So I'm suggesting that this new director, who I think has a lot of experience, take a different attitude, and that is to look to see whether in fact somebody made a mistake. You know, humans make mistakes. And in this particular case, they keep making the same mistake at Cathedral. So I think he's got a case in front of him. So I'm suggesting that instead of defending the department to the teeth, they should first take a look to see whether it could be settled, whether in fact mistakes were made. That would have saved a lot of, it would have saved us money and time and effort. And secondly, would have saved the department. So that is a change in attitude. That's asking for a lot in an institution like that, but I think it's worthy effort. And finally, even if they don't want to do that, or is part of that, it would be helpful to everybody in the DC government, including the BZA, and this is recommendation number 5, if the department would sit down with the ANC that is either threatening or has taken an appeal and said, okay, we have a difference here, but let's figure out what facts we can agree on and what policies we can agree on. And at least that will narrow the case for the BZA. In the cathedral case, I think I'm correct about this, and Commissioner Duncan and Commissioner Horn have dealt with this, so forgive me if I have this wrong, but I don't think we have an agreement about what the facts are on the ground. We have our position and they have, well, I don't know, we don't know what their position is, and then we have a position with regard to how we think they violated the zoning rules, and we don't know. I don't think we know for sure what their position is. That is a silly position. My view is when we're coming in front of the BZA, which is part of the DC government, we're all part of the same organization. We owe it to ourselves, the department and the BZA to sit down and try to figure out what facts and policies we agree on and which ones we disagree on. And that would make for a better case in front of the BZA. And it seems to me that's just sensible behavior. I ask my colleagues whether they think, in fact, in the private sector that doesn't happen, and maybe I'm just blowing smoke or whatever. But anyway, that is the fifth recommendation. It just seems to make sense. So that is the letter to Mr. Hanlon, and I have my sense is that this letter might be a surprise to the director, but I don't think he would react to it with great negativity. I think he would take it as a constructive suggestion to him as director. And that's how the letter, I think, is intended. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and chime in. When we met with the DOB people, the general counsel's office was there, Kathleen Beaton was there, and they won't be surprised to get our suggestions. And if they're really serious about making changes there, I think that this is a little bit, doing some brainstorming for them. So I like it. I would like to say that Commissioner Elkins and I talked about, let's send the letter asking for the building plans first, and then maybe wait a few days before we send, this is how we think you should do your jobs.
I certainly agree with that.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments?
I do. I like the letter very much. I like the suggestions. I might offer a friendly, I'd be willing to see if you'd be interested in a friendly amendment. Recommendations 1, 3, 4, and 5 would not cause any spending, would not require any spending by the Department of Buildings. Training could potentially be seen by them as needing an appropriation or more time or more effort. I'm not saying that we pull training from the letter, but I might ask that we reorder the bullets to get to move that one down to the bottom, get them nodding their heads at the other 4. And then if they have to cut one, then maybe it's training. And the reason why I think we'd be okay without the training is because we also have the avenue of OANC as another place that might be able to facilitate some training for us.
Yes, I think that I certainly would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, just so Catherine and I are clear, we're talking about moving recommendation number 3 to number 5 and then reordering the other ones.
Number 2.
Number 2
2
is
goes to
Oh,
5.
number two.
Number 2 goes to 5. Got it.
2
2.
goes to 5.
The training. Okay, I have it up right here. All right,
Yep.
so number 2 will go to number 5, and then we'll reorder everything from there.
Yeah, and on number 2, tiny little typo. ANC commissioners will never be as well trained. It's
Yeah,
currently
I saw
training,
that
so we just-
earlier too. First sentence.
Oh, yes, thank you.
That was the only one I saw.
Could I say?
Otherwise, I think it's a great letter and really good recommendations, and hopefully not seen as problematic by the Department of Buildings. I think, and maybe we might put a sentence in the first paragraph that says, look, the ANCs really seek to be your partner in this.
Okay.
And you do talk about how we can be additional eyes. And so I think that would be helpful. There was something that the DMV commissioners or leader said today that I said, oh, I need to make note of that when we were talking about this letter. Oh, sorry. If it comes to me, I'll
come to you.
Come back.
If I might just say back to my fellow commissioner here, yes, I do think that OANC should be designing these kind of training sessions that are not organized entirely by a department, but having input from commissioners about what we really need to know. I've taken a number of training courses, of course, over the term of my serving as commissioner, and they are all focused on how the department wants ANCs to think about their program. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that when we're sitting out here at the neighborhood level, we have other needs that they may or may not see. I agree with them. And so I would ask that this has been a continuing campaign on my part to get better training out of OANC. And I would ask my fellow commissioners to help me and help all of us as we go forward and look for opportunities to suggest training to OANC, that we need to know more than just how to handle a FOIA request. You notice, I'll just maybe take that example. They train us over and over again about how we should respond to FOIA requests. Very important, don't get me wrong. They do not train us on how we can use FOIA, where we are forced to by the agency because they won't give us the information otherwise, how we use FOIA to do our job. No, they don't give training on that. They don't see that as part of their job. And it's a trivial example compared to what we're talking about tonight, but OANC needs some help to see the world from the point of view of ANC commissioners. And I hope that all of you will join me in helping them see that in a diplomatic and constructive manner.
Yeah, I agree. I figured out what I was thinking when we were listening to the DMV head that he was talking about the STEER Act not being appropriated, and that was sort of what got me thinking about the training not being appropriated. So in terms of the partnership, I think it's super easy to just say that the ANC commissioners can be partners and observers in the neighborhood or at the neighborhood level. Just really be explicit in that partnership language in the first paragraph.
Okay, I will make that change. Take that as a friendly amendment. I agree with you. That is the philosophy, and it doesn't come through quite as well as it could.
Yeah, and I'll think about it, Commissioner Elkins. Maybe there's some ways that we can pull that language through, especially as it goes to basically we're asking them to treat us as partners when it comes to ANC questions. And when we go into the appeals process, and if we can change the mindset of us not being adversaries, but being partners, then that would help us all.
Could I ask permission to look at the rest of the letter and see if there's a room to stick in the word partner in some of the sections? Because I think you're right. That was the intent. But yes.
Okay, I am going to call the question. All those in favor of approving this letter as amended with reordering the recommendations, adding the word partnership, fixing the typo. All those in favor? Unanimous. Wonderful. Moving on, we have 2 liquor license renewals. I am going to go ahead and make a motion on the floor that we approve both the whiskey shop and Addie Bassins that are located in 3D03 and 3D05 respectively. Do I have a second? Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt. And I am going to let Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt talk about the whiskey shop and Commissioner Horn say any words about Addie Bassins. Go ahead, Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt.
Yeah, sure. So it's a whiskey shop on 50th Street. It's in this little building that has a bunch of office spaces. It just takes up one office space. It's been operating for about 2 years. I think it came to the commission earlier, but it was just online at that point because it had opened during COVID. And now it's like a premium, like very high-end whiskey shop. People come in and like schedule appointments for tastings and stuff. So it doesn't really contribute to traffic in the neighborhood. Honestly, I barely noticed that it's existed, and the license is coming for renewal. And he serves residents in Spring Valley. He lives in the person who runs the restaurant, the shop he lives in Montgomery County where he's a volunteer firefighter. So I asked him to come here, but he works volunteer firefighting on Wednesday nights, so he cannot make the meeting. But I think we should just renew this.
Broke
It really doesn't contribute
in 2
much traffic
places.
to
It
the
was already
neighborhood
broken.
or have any real effect on property values. So yeah.
Commissioner Horn.
Addie Bassins MacArthur Beverages is up for its 3-year renewal. It's been there since the early 1960s. So I'm hoping that this is just routine.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, all those in favor of approving these 2 renewals? Vote is unanimous.
Shop being there since the 1960s is astounding. In DC, really?
Madam Chairman, I had one point about these kind of liquor license things. I think when you and I were discussing this before this meeting a few days ago, I looked back at the statute and I found that, in fact, not only are we supposed to, of course, receive notification about these various liquor licenses, and there are a lot of them, but we are also supposed to take action on them, and I think the practice of this commission in the past, of which many of you, all of you except JP have not part of, is we did not do that. And I think the action like we took tonight, which was very quick and essentially allowed the public to come in if they want. This is the whole purpose, as I see it, for the public to come in and say, wait a minute, it may have been there since 1960, but it is a really big problem today. We need to hear that from our constituents. It's unlikely we will, because I think if we have our ear to the ground, we will have heard it already. But to give them an opportunity, I think that's the purpose. So I think what I'm saying is to my fellow commissioners, I think we need, I noticed we got a few more notices in the last few days. We need to bring them onto the agenda, put them on, put them out and let the public come in, and then we can deal with them very quickly unless there's a protest.
Yeah, I like the idea of bundling them with sort of a consent. But we obviously, one person wants to come and be heard and bring something to our attention. We will take that up individually. Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt?
Yeah, I have a question for Commissioner Elkins, and I guess Commissioner Simkovich, same. I looked at I tried to find the initial resolution for this, and it happened like 2 years ago, I think fall of 2021. And it seems like it never made it onto it seems like it was on the agenda, but it got pulled off, and so it never got a vote or anything. So I don't think the ANC ever took action on the initial liquor license approving it. So what happens in that case? It seems like they just approved it anyways.
For the whiskey?
Yeah.
I think that they were just operating not as a real store, but as a warehouse, and I don't think we did anything on it.
I think that's my point, Commissioner. I think that I think the attitude among the commissioners, having not gone back and read the statute, was that if we don't have a problem, we're not required to say anything and that only if we have a protest or have some concern, we should bring it forward. And I think as I read the statute, and I would ask others to check me on this, is I think that is not sufficient, that we have to actually give our constituents a chance to comment and then take an action, even if it is just very quick as we did tonight.
Yeah,
But
and
if we don't take it up, then it just gets approved, or, they hear it without.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
That is correct. The ABCA is not waiting for us.
Right.
The statute doesn't say they have to wait for us.
Moving on to the letter of opposition to the initiative.
Did we vote on? I don't
Yeah, we
know if we
voted.
voted.
We did.
Oh, we did?
We did.
Okay.
7-0.
All right.
But Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt, you are up with the opposition to the Initiative Amendment Act. Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, sure. I'm motioning to put this on the floor. This is a do I need a second before I start talking? Technically?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Noah. Yeah, so this is a resolution against the Initiative Amendment Act, which was just introduced into committee, I think last month, and they were supposed to actually, no, it was introduced 3 months ago. They were supposed to take a vote last month, but they faced a lot of pushback. So they've delayed the hearing on it, and they've delayed the vote. I don't know when it will come up again, but I figured since we have more time to weigh in on before they take their first vote in committee, I think we should. The Initiative Amendment Act is basically a bill that would change the rules for ballot initiatives in DC to disqualify any initiative that depends upon an appropriation of money from the council to implement. Because, and my reason for opposition to this is because almost every possible ballot initiative would cost some amount of money to implement, whether through like education or outreach, or just like paying someone the hours to work to implement legislation. This would basically end the initiative process in DC as we know it. So DC residents, they have the right to make laws by passing ballot initiatives. They've changed policies in DC in important ways. They've raised the tip minimum wage. They protected reproductive rights. They voted on referendums to establish statehood commissions. They passed Initiative 82 last year. This would not abolish the initiative process, but it rules out any initiative that would depend on an appropriation to implement. And it's kind of hard to imagine any initiative that would cost nothing to implement, even just like renaming a street sign. Obviously, that would cost buying the sign and buying the paint. So this basically takes the initiative process out of the hands of DC voters. And in a city where we have 13 seats on the DC Council, and it seems like when you get elected and you become an incumbent, you are never at risk of losing your seat. This is one way for direct democracy to really work for us here. And we've used it in a lot of astounding ways over the past couple of decades. And I think the council has moved this in response to a lawsuit by the DC Democrats to try to stop Initiative 83, which we aren't allowed to weigh on because it's an initiative before the public. So the ANC is not allowed to weigh on that initiative, but this would not only block that initiative, but block initiatives, for the rest of time by amending the Home Rule Act. And so the Initiative 83, they said the lawsuit was basically saying that this cannot become an initiative because it's subject to it would cost funding to implement. And so they added language saying that subject to appropriations, this initiative is passed. And that's how most initiatives have been passed. We pass an initiative, someone say it costs money to implement, the CFO will do an estimate, and the council decides whether or not to actually pay for the initiative. They almost always do, because when citizens pass an initiative with 80% or 70%, it would be very bad politics for them to oppose it. But this would basically stop us from being able to pass any initiative ever. And I think it's an attack on democracy that's happening across the United States right now. We see it in Ohio, where they're trying to stop initiatives to protect reproductive rights from getting on the ballot. This is not the same, obviously, but I still think that it's something we should stand in strong opposition to.
Any comments, Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, I did look some research into this. This is really kind of a fascinating issue. And there are indeed pros and cons to representative democracy and direct democracy, and strong ones at that. I think I found that only half of the states in the union actually have initiative, the possibility of initiatives. Half of them do not, with good reason as well. And of course, Commissioner Horn knows much more about all this than I do, but I just want to share, my thoughts on some of these things, because there is something called mob rule. They've talked about how sometimes with direct initiatives can be a little crazy. You might not have the expertise that legislators have, or they have staff that can research things. They have better understanding of the purse and budgets and that kind of thing, which give them an advantage. And also, like with some of the initiatives that we've gotten, aren't necessarily the greatest ones. I mean, I-71, for example, like that was one that kind of is creating a lot of problems. Because of one, maybe if that was done by the council, it might have been more thoroughly thought through or more cohesive. And some of the other ones, like I think the wages for servers and the way that the tipping was changed, that was done through initiative. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
And that's been very controversial and not, in my opinion, not very well thought out and creating all sorts of issues for restaurants and businesses in our city. And then one of my favorites is, I just got to share this and then I'll let other people speak, is anybody's heard of the initiative in Sweden that led to a train being named Trainee McTrainface? People actually put that on a ballot initiative that passed. And so the company had to go through and name a new high-speed rail in Sweden, Trainee McTrainface. So I just want to end with that one because that's what initiatives can bring you if you're not careful. So I wanted to have this discussion in all seriousness because I'm not sure where I stand on it. And I just wanted to get maybe have a little bit more discussion from people that might know more than I do. Thank you.
Commissioner Cologne, did you want to say something?
I do want to respond to some of those points. I mean, I think the I-71, yes, we've seen it being implemented very poorly, but that's because Congress stepped in and really changed the act in a way that it was not supposed to be changed. I mean, these gifting shops are operating because Congress decided to gut part of the law. And I think that the legislation as it was written, the initiative would have made it. So basically we have the system that they're just rolling out right now. And so I'm not sure if that's really the fault of DC voters, more so the fault of Congress. And also the council has stepped in and overturned initiatives before, and they've also said they won't fund initiatives before. So they do have a power over initiatives when they really do think they're out of line. But this is a way for us to propose legislation for them to either, try to overturn or to take up and to fund. And I think some of the stuff like ranked choice voting are things that they're really loath to take up on their own because it might harm their election prospects. And so this is a way for us to voice our concerns, and maybe they don't all become law even if we pass them, but this is a way to sort of talk to the council through ballot initiative. And I really do think that residents of DC are, incredibly educated people who work for the government, most of them, they're journalists. I am not sure that we really do have mob rule in DC through the initiative and process right now.
But we have lots of channels to make change. You can go through your ANC, you can lobby your city council members directly. I mean, it's not that as if we didn't have the initiative process the way half of the states in the union don't have. It's not like we wouldn't have representation.
Yeah, but we'd have less. I mean, or we'd have less mechanisms to argue with them about it.
Commissioner Nowak?
I'm in support of the letter. I think Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt hit my thoughts on it sort of in response to those who say mob rule could put up poorly considered initiatives. The appropriations process as it stands today is an effective check and balance against that because to the commissioner's point, almost everything needs an appropriation. And so that gives the council and the mayor chance to weigh in on the initiatives. And while it's certainly not ideal, it gives them a way to gut it if they want to. And I-71 is actually a perfect example of how Congress gutted a law that was the will of the DC public. So I have my own issues with Congress doing it, but if it were the council did that, then I think that is within the intent of the statute as originally written, as opposed to as the way Mendelson and Bonds' bill is looking to change it. That's it.
Commissioner Elkins.
I recently had a conversation with a council member, not our Ward 3 council member, about a particular bill that I thought he might want to introduce. And I think he agreed with me on the substance, but he basically implied that half of his constituents would disagree, and therefore he was not going to stick his neck out. I don't blame him for that. I think, but it sort of tells me that lobbying your council member about something they have a lot of considerations about what to get out and lead on. And sometimes it's not politically sensible for them to do that. And so I do think there's room here for voter initiative. And I do agree with all the points that have been made about there some checks and balances here for the council to act afterwards to bring as a whole all 13, not just this one particular council member, to make a decision whether the public's vote makes some sense. So I'm in favor of this this letter.
I would like to add that I'm not as afraid of the mob rule because I did also read about the Trainee McTrain face thing. The threshold to get a ballot initiative on the ballot here, you have to get a lot of signatures, and it takes a small army of dedicated volunteers to actually educate voters because people don't just sign anything willy-nilly around here. So I take things very seriously once they make it to the ballot, because it has been a full court press from a large group of people trying to get the word out. So I'll be voting in support of the letter also.
I want to go back to something that Commissioner Elkins said, which is really important. I think this is the way that we primarily pose ideas to the council that they are unwilling to take up on their own. Unlike other states, they have, hundreds of state representatives you could contact, state senators, stuff like that. We only have 13 council members. And, when you take up an issue on your own in the council, you're going to face a lot of flack for it sometimes, and you're not going to want to stick your neck out for some causes. And this is a way to sort of back council members who might be too afraid to do some things that we would really want them to do. And it's a way for DC residents to interact better with their council members and with the mayor. And so I think this is a really important process here, especially.
To put that in perspective, we have about the same population as Wyoming. They have a legislature of 40 people. We are woefully underrepresented. Now, they also have like a lot of geography, but even with geography, our representation is pretty slim.
Or we have ANCs.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for indulging me.
We know how much influence we have, right?
I think someone at the last meeting said we had immense power. I remember.
I wish. Actually, I would like to. I'm not sure if I need to do this a friendly amendment or something, but I had someone who was combing through the letter. I noticed that I referenced the legislation wrong. It says B250475 in the title, but it says B20475 in every other place throughout the letter, which means I just copied it and pasted it incorrectly. Can I just amend that? Or I amended it on the thing I sent the email already, but
yeah, absolutely. That you can when we call the question, we'll say as amended. And
okay.
Could you please make sure that Catherine knows exactly how we need to, unless you want to send us, is it already fixed?
It's already in the, I made an edit to the one in our drive or Dropbox or whatever, solid words, so it should be good.
Perfect. Okay. Are we ready to call the question?
Yep.
All those in favor of approving this letter and sending it to the council? All right, unanimous.
Done.
Well done. And last but not least, on our official actions, the 2207 Foxhall Road vacant and blighted building letter to Attorney General Brian Schwab. Do you have a motion on the floor, Commissioner Simkowitz?
I do. I wrote a letter in response to our meeting a few months ago when we talked about the blighted house on Foxhall Road, where the neighbor, Mr. Dwyer, came in. Mr. Elkins and I, Commissioner Elkins and I, have been working on this issue since then, and Commissioner Elkins edited my letter, which he's very, very good at. And we have an amended letter that he sent around so that Catherine can put the right one in. I ask for a second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Commissioner Nowak seconds the motion.
Thank you. And basically, this letter asks the Attorney General of the District of Columbia to investigate intervening in the bankruptcy proceeding that is preventing this house from being utilized as a single-family house. We are losing $600,000 in real property tax on this as of today. And every day that goes by, we lose even more. So this is just a bad situation. And the neighbors have to suffer from the weeds and the rats and mice that are coming in to their property because of this house. It's totally, as everybody can see, it's up on stilts, and it's been on stilts for at least 5 years. And Mr. Dwyer said it's been vacant for 10. So if it's been vacant for 10, we have a real problem. You know, we have to do something, and this is it.
So I have a question. What can the Attorney General do? Could he ask the courts to force a sale? Or
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Commissioner Elkins and I, neither one of us are bankruptcy attorneys, but in order for the Attorney General to do anything, he has to get approval from the bankruptcy court. So what we envision is that he goes into the bankruptcy court and says, hey, we're the District of Columbia, we're a creditor, meaning our real estate tax that hasn't been paid. You know, we would like this property sold to the highest bidder as soon as possible. This bankruptcy court was started in 2020. So this thing's been going on for 4 years. And I looked at the docket, and there's been no movement in you know, at least a year, maybe more. And that's just, you know, inexcusable.
Commissioner Simkowitz, can you see if there are other debtors besides the city who are parties to this
Well,
bankruptcy?
yeah, I looked up. I couldn't really tell because, you know, things might happen in the background where it wouldn't make the court docket, but I imagine there's probably some sort of lender on the property, because why would they be in bankruptcy if there were no lenders?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that the DC property tax would pull anybody into bankruptcy court, but you know, this property has been a problem property for the district for years, and we may want to revisit the historic designation at some point, because remember, this house was deposited there. It wasn't a house that was originally there. Maybe the city can move it to a park or something to be used as a classroom or showcase what life was like in the 1800s or whenever this thing was built. But you know, right now it's just a mess.
I'm not opposed to asking the AG to help move this along. My fear is that who's going to buy this property while that historic designation is standing?
Well, you know, that's a good question. And Commissioner Elkins and I discussed this. It might be that somebody buys this property and says, wait a second, you know, I'm not going to put a mega mansion there, but I'm going to live in this small house on Foxhall Road, and they'll get it for 500,000 instead of 5 million.
The other approach, which one of the owners was pursuing, and I think ran out of money, and I think I would guess that's why it's on stilts, because they were moving the house forward, was to be able to build a house behind it that would not destroy the historic designation, but would provide for a larger house. But I mean, this whole thing that came about was because this couple bought this house, and then people came in and got it designated as historic, and so they were left holding the bag. It really is not the way I think historic preservation should work. But anyway, that's really what started this cascade of events.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, hopefully, some friendly amendments. I fixed some just general typo and a couple in a syntax thing, but didn't change the meaning at all.
That's fine.
Friendly amendment.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of approving this letter as amended? All right, again, unanimous. And this concludes our official actions. And for commission business, we want to send to OANC a nomination for Chuck Elkins to serve on the advisory board. I think maybe most of the commission has written. I think it might be nice to send a note as the whole commission. Do I have a second to send that note?
Sure.
Commissioner Simkowitz seconds the motion. We really want Chuck there, and I want to say anyone who knows a commissioner in Ward 3 in another ANC, I have a message out to the chairman at 3B Commissioner Bergman, and over in 3C. If anyone knows someone over in 3E, they may not be recommending anyone. Would be nice to have some recommendations from across the ward there. All right, all those in favor?
It's not unanimous.
I abstain.
6 and 1.
Abstaining.
One abstention. And
Can we
Commissioner,
call it by acclamation? And then Chuck doesn't have to vote for himself.
what does that mean? I'm unfamiliar with this term.
So a vote of consent by acclamation basically is that people don't have to raise their hand.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can raise your hand if you are in opposition, but otherwise, no.
Yes, we'll do this vote by consent. Seeing none in opposition, we are.
Don't be opposed, Chuck.
Thank you, everyone.
Up next on the agenda is the minutes. The motion on the floor is to approve the minutes from the March meeting. Is there a second? Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt gives us a second.
And
There was,
February too.
excuse me?
I mean, February as well. I think I sent both of them around.
Right, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do both of these together. Did anyone have any changes to the February minutes? I had none. The meeting minutes for last week.
Oh, Madam Chairman, I may interrupt. I'm sorry. There were a couple changes that I received, very small ones, from Commissioner Horn and from Commissioner Elkins and from Commissioner Roosevelt. And I made all of those changes. They're final. They're on the drive under the minutes. So they reflect everything that was asked of me when I sent them around for review.
So we don't have to do any further amendments. What's on
No,
the
it would just be,
website now
it would
is
just be
as
if we
amended.
approve them, then I'll PDF them and sign them and then they can be done.
Was that for February or was that for
both February and March?
And March? Okay, so I actually did some amending under the green theory when it came to the amendments. So at the end, Commissioner Elkins put an amendment to add the paragraph that we ended up adding that was based on comments from the meeting. While we put him on the spot and he was writing that up, I offered one amendment to the letter that changed a word from concluded to anticipates. And then I offered another amendment to the settlement agreement that said we couldn't have any indication that there was any visual things about marijuana from the street. And I clarified that in the minutes. So they were amended in the last 2 days.
Okay. Your of those changes.
All those can we have a consent to approve the minutes as amended?
Yeah.
Without seeing opposition? That is approved. Marilyn, do you have anything to report on the treasurer?
We are not, we have just closed Q2 of 2024. So next month we will approve the QFR. The only expenses of note that I'll call out to commissioners just for your information is we did enter into the contract with District Engagement, the website that was discussed in prior months. And we now have our commission administrator on staff that is a budgeted position. So we do not need to vote on payments for Catherine. And so those payments will go out as they are. She has invoiced us and we'll get paid on that. And we, having received the approval of the ANC Security Fund, I got caught up with all of our outstanding payments. So commissioners, you might have had a check slip through your mail slot today. Be on the lookout for that. That's it for the treasurer's report.
Commissioner
Commissioner Elkins, did you have a question?
I did have a question about the contract with Catherine, our administrator. I think we did avail ourselves of the authority which we gave ourselves to write a interim contract with her beyond what we had approved at the last meeting. This was just to cover a few days because our contract the full contract did not get signed as of the day of our meeting. And I think just to make sure that we don't get challenged on that, since this is a 3D process that is not always, that sort of we invented ourselves, which I think has been approved in the past by Dawn Dickerson. I just think it might be good for us to approve that extension of her training contract tonight so that there's no challenge later that we spent money in a way that had not been approved by the commission. So I would.
Didn't we approve the training contract last month?
That was a different contract. That was yes, we approved that, but then another contract amendment to that contract was written in between. And that's the contract that I think we need to, just to be safe, we need to approve.
Okay, I don't have any objection to that, but I don't think we need to, because we have her work contract and we have the training contract that was put in place until such time as the contract was approved. But I don't have any objections, I guess.
Prior to the creation of this commission in January a year ago, this commission approved a process by which the chair could write contracts with the signature on a work statement by the vice chair to essentially commit the commission to expenditure of funds, but that at the next meeting, that contract would be approved by the commission. And so we have not, unless we vote tonight, we have not followed that process, because the chair did write a new contract with the administrator to cover a couple of days. And just, just to make sure we're following the process that this commission approved in prior years. It's not on our bylaws, but it's in our documents. And Dawn has agreed to that in the past. I just think I'm going into detail because we do use this authority occasionally. And
I just want to be clear. So the original contract was prior to our meeting date, right? Yeah. And then on our meeting date, we approved her contract going forward. And I think to be effective as of the new contract was effective the day the old contract ended. So
no, it was effective as of, supposedly it was written to be effective the day of our meeting, but it was not signed at that point.
There was a couple day lapse.
Therefore, to cover ourselves, the chair wrote an additional work product under the previous training contract to cover those times, and that has not been approved by this commission. And it is that contract that I'm suggesting we approve tonight.
Okay.
Motion on the floor is to approve the stopgap contract that to cover the few day lag we had from the permanent contract. Do I have a second? Commissioner Nowak seconds the motion. Does anyone have any questions?
Not a question, but a comment. Can we just use this as a learning opportunity that next time we write a transition contract, we do it, the end date is when the effective date of the permanent contract?
Yes.
That's an excellent suggestion.
Without objection, I'm passing this with unanimous consent. Okay, great. I am officially noticing our next meeting is May 1st at 7 p.m. First Wednesday in May. Motion on the floor is to adjourn. Commissioner Nowak seconds the motion. I want to thank everyone who showed up and stayed on, if you're still listening. And I think this was a great meeting. And thank you all very much. Meeting
Thank you,
is-
Madam Chair. Thank you all.